like to begin just by thanking the Municipal Alliance Committee of the Chathams and Catherine Marino, who's sitting in the back, for sponsoring this program and other terrific events to help raise awareness about critical issues in the lives of students. Tonight's program is probably one that's new to MAC in sponsoring, in that it deals more with distracted driving than it does with any kind of substance-related issue. But I think you will find this to be highly relevant to your lives and to your kids' lives. And we have a unique and amazing story that J.C. Good and her husband Steve Johnson will share with us tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Rainy night, work night, school night. We really appreciate you guys being here. I'm Steve. The pretty lady over there is Jay-Z. We're going to tell you our story. We do it just a little bit differently than what we did during the school day to kind of tweak to the parental, mostly, audience. But we're going to talk, try to tell the story as quickly as we can, so we leave a little bit of time for questions. We'll definitely get you out of here at 8 or before, and that's it. Jace, go.
So I am JC, and this is just my own personal story, which really can't be told unless I tell the story that came before mine. And so that means I get to introduce you to Jay and Jean Good. Jay and Jean were hippies, I think it's safe to say. They grew up a few towns apart in Pennsylvania, met when they were 20, they were both in college. My dad flunked out or dropped out or got kicked out because it was the 1970s and he was doing whatever hippies did in the 1970s. I don't know, I never got the whole story. They met when they were 20. My mom got her degree to teach. She always wanted to be a teacher. And so they started dating, only had to date for 7 years before my dad asked my mom what she wanted for her birthday, and she said, I just want to get married already. My dad took the hint. They got engaged, got married in 1977, bought property in Pennsylvania and built a house, like with their own hands, built a house. And my mom wanted kids. My dad was a little slower to agree. And now that we're the age that they were at that time, I'm really feeling where my dad was coming from.
I'm in her mom's shoes. I would do this thing tomorrow if JC would just give the green light.
I want babies in theory. In theory, it's great. And I'll get there. I'm almost there. Anyway, as that story went, one night they had a bunch of friends over to play volleyball, maybe had a little too much to drink, and 9 months later my big brother was born, and then 3 years later, in 1986, I was born. My mom was a teacher, my dad ended up getting a job as a mechanic. Smartest person I've ever known. He could fix anything he put his hands on. And so they raised their kids and gave my brother and I this absolutely perfect childhood. You know, we were never exactly wealthy, but that meant we spent a lot of time together as a family, and we were always incredibly close. And I was very, very lucky to grow up with that. And it kind of helped me to figure out, you know, where I was going to fit in this world. And so, again, if I'm being honest, those hippie ways may have rubbed off on me just a little. We'll fast forward a couple decades until when I was in high school. And I was voted most school-spirited in my senior class. Thank you. I knew I wanted to go to college. I was lucky that I was kind of always one of the smart kids, and so I knew I needed to have that resume to get into a good school. So other than my awesome Spirit Week outfits, I played softball, and I played volleyball, and I ran cross country, and I was in the environmental club, and the stage crew, and the science fair, and the quiz bowl team, and everything I could do because I knew I wanted to go to college, and it worked. I graduated number 9 in my class of students and got into my first choice school. It's Muhlenberg College, tiny little school in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which was an hour and a half from where I grew up in Lancaster, and it was a really perfect fit for me. You know, I was close enough to home without being too close to home, and I was a very excited young college girl. But I guess, honestly, in these shoes, moving away to the big city of Allentown and needing to make new friends, I was really, really scared. You know, I had never had to do anything so monumental in my young and naive life. But I guess thankfully I was in this honors program, which 15 other people. So kind of right off the bat, I had 15 new friends, including this really cute boy. This really cute boy from the foreign-sounding land of Westchester, New York. That boy's name was Steve. I met Steve the day we moved into our dorm rooms. I think he lived 3 doors down the hallway, and I was just happy I had successfully made a new friend and I didn't need to sit alone in the cafeteria. Quickly became obvious this popular kid from New York who had never actually had the guts to ask a girl out, definitely trying to date me. I was extremely upset by this because I didn't really want a boyfriend. And I maintained that attitude for 3 weeks before I caved.
So I may not have known what I was doing because it was my first relationship, but I did something and it worked.
Much to my own surprise, we worked really well together. You know, in spite of what I thought I wanted, we ended up being together all 4 years of college. And by the time senior year rolled around, it finally dawned on me I had found something really special with this popular kid from New York, and I wanted to make that work. He had gotten a job back home in New York. I said, all right, if you're in New York, I don't want to be 4 hours away back home where I grew up. I'm coming to that actual big city. Got hired for my dream job. I worked for Habitat for Humanity. I lived in Brooklyn with my best friend for a year. Steve would live up in the suburbs. We'd see each other on the weekends, and we'd get engaged, and we'd get married, and buy a house, and I'd have those kids that I really have always wanted. And so our graduation day was May 18th of 2008. So we just passed 8 years last week. This was everything I had worked for my entire life, and that day started absolutely perfectly. Graduation ceremony was at 10 o'clock. My whole family was together. My parents and I packed up, you know, that good old family station wagon, and we left college around 2 o'clock. It's an hour and a half to get home. And we got about halfway home, and we stopped at a gas station. There's really not anything exciting about that. We always stopped there. We'd be home in 45 minutes. But I guess I share that little snippet because it's the very last memory that I have for the next 2 months or so.
So I called and texted JC a couple of times each, just to let her know that I'd gotten home back to my place in New York after graduation. And she wasn't responding, but it didn't worry me at all. First of all, she never paid much attention to her phone, but on top of that, it was graduation day. You know, she could be busy unpacking, celebrating with her family, whatever. But it was those calls and texts piling up on her phone. That's the reason I got called first that night. My phone rang about 5 o'clock or so, and I looked down. It had a picture of her face. It said, JC babe, so her cell phone is calling my cell phone. So I picked up and I said, hey babe, but it just wasn't her voice on the other side. I had a confused back and forth with this stranger for a minute before she finally said, my name is Barb. I'm a chaplain at the Reading Hospital in Pennsylvania. There's been an accident. And she wouldn't tell me anything. Just needed me to answer questions about JC, like what color her eyes, how long is her hair, what's her birthday, her social security number, and I answered the best I could, but all the while in the back of my head, I was just thinking, you know, JC can't answer these questions for herself. Something really bad has happened. At the end of the call, Barb asked me who she should call next. I said, call JC's brother Jared. She said she would, and she called me back within 2 hours with an update. And then we hung up, and I just spent that next couple hours just kind of crying, not really knowing what to do with myself, but 2 hours passed, and then 2.5 hours passed, and I still hadn't gotten a call back from the hospital. And you know, to me, that meant that she was gone. This person who I'd been in love with for 3.5 years and who my entire future revolved around, the only girl I'd ever even kissed, and that's it, she was gone. And I could not be consoled. Thankfully, I only had to feel that way for about half an hour because my phone rang again and it was Jared, it was her brother. And the first thing he said was, JC's alive. He said she's got 2 broken feet, a broken leg, a shattered pelvis, a broken wrist, a broken collarbone, a lacerated liver, partially collapsed lungs, damaged carotid arteries, and some sort of traumatic brain injury. But she's in surgery. And to me, that meant she's going to be okay. She's in a hospital with doctors and surgery. People get better. That's the way it works. And so I was kind of floating on air until the next thing he said was, unfortunately, neither of my parents made it. And I was sort of right back to where I'd been a minute earlier. These people who treated me like I was one of their own and who I loved so much and who, you know, I knew somewhere down the road were going to be the greatest grandparents to my children, were gone. It was impossible. Like, things like this just did not happen in my normal Westchester County kid life, but, you know, there it was. The truth is, I guess, in that moment, all I could really think about was her. So my parents and I packed bags, we got on the road. It's about a 3.5-hour drive to this hospital, and they brought us up to a room where we met JC's family, and then all we could do was really just kind of pray and wait. I mean, what else could we do? Finally, it was somewhere after 1 a.m. at this point. It was real late. JC had been in surgery for over 8.5 hours. The brain surgeon walked in the room. He said, "JC's alive. She's out of surgery. You can go see her 2 at a time." And so Jared and I kind of linked arms, and we supported each other as we walked down this hallway to the last room in the intensive care unit, where this is more or less what we saw. We think this is maybe day 4 or 5. We're not really sure. But just because Jared is smiling over her, it's probably not earlier than that. Some good stuff had to have happened by then. She looked like death. You would not have thought a person could be alive and look the way that she did. It was the most terrifying thing I've seen in my entire life. A little bit later, that first night, the brain surgeon took us all to the side, and he said, you know, JC only has a 10% chance of living through the night. This may come as a shock to you guys, but it turns out she did live through that first night. She just kept hanging on. And, you know, she hit the first 24-hour mark in 36, and 48, and 72. All these little milestones that the doctor said would give her an extra 10% chance of surviving. She just kept holding on. We were so blessed the way things went. It's about 2 weeks before she started to wake up a little bit. It was clear to us that she could not move the left side of her body, you know, but we were just thrilled to see her awake and doing anything. And she could give us these 5 or 10 minute windows in the day where we'd say, "Hey, JC, give us a thumbs up," and she'd actually do it. So we knew she was capable of hearing and processing and reacting, and that was great. But for the other 23.5 hours of the day, she was completely in her own little world. It was as if, you know, she couldn't hear the people talking to her, she couldn't see the people in front of her. You could see it in her eyes, you know, she was kind of looking through everything. And because she was in this state of sort of being awake but not really aware, she just drove us off the wall. She was pulling off all the little sticky heart monitors and stuff they put on her chest. She actually ripped her feeding tube directly out of her stomach a few times, which is extremely disgusting to witness. They put it in, and then they blow it up with like a balloon so that you can't pull it out. That did not stop the crazy person over there. And she picked up this trachea tube in her neck non-stop. And I mean non-stop. Like, she'd reach for it, I'd bat her away. She'd reach for it, I'd bat her away for 2 hours straight, unrelenting. All she knows is that I'm stopping her from doing what she wanted to be doing. And because of that, she just decided to beat the crap out of me, hitting me just as hard as she could. And, you know, we never got to the level of fighting in college where fists were being used. But it turns out she's packing some serious heat in that right arm. She was destroying me. I counted one day, she hit me as hard as she could over 200 times before I lost count. If I wasn't fast enough pulling my hand away, she'd grab it and pull it to her mouth and bite as hard as she could. This animal over here actually made me bleed biting my pinky 2 or 3 times. I was going home every night, physically, emotionally, just as low as I could be. But, you know, one of those days, just as an example, I put a pen in her hand and I said, "Hey, draw a J+S and put a heart around it on my hand." And she did it. And, you know, she didn't know what she was doing from any emotional standpoint. She didn't even know who I was. But she followed the command. And I could lay in bed that night feeling just horrible and kind of look at my hand, and I know that it's a little sappy, but I could convince myself that, you know, we have to be headed in the right direction. I can get up again tomorrow and do another 12-hour day in the hospital like I've been doing. So it was just these silly little things. If she could just give me something in a day's time, that was enough to keep me fueled for another 24 hours. It was about a month before JC started to talk. She wasn't really making much sense at first, but over time she was making a little more and a little more. And then 2 months after the crash, she was ready to be moved from the first hospital to a rehab hospital.
So one of the things I am most grateful for in this entire story is that I was so badly injured that I have no memories. I remember stopping at that gas station, and then I don't remember anything, thankfully. My own memories started to come back around in this hospital, trying to learn how to live life again, learning how to live in a wheelchair, learning how to dress myself, learning how to speak, learning how to do these things I had always taken for granted that all of a sudden I couldn't do. Getting myself to the point in August that I could stand, I could learn how to walk again. That life I had worked so hard for, it wasn't just a memory. I could still achieve those things that I had worked to bring into my own life. I was at a point that I was healthy enough, I was stable enough. I spent another month learning how to walk, like a couple of steps every day. I didn't need to live in the hospital anymore. It was September, 4 months after the fact, that I moved home to my parents' house. And it wasn't until that point that I could even comprehend the scope of what had happened. That mom and dad weren't sleeping in their bed at night. Mom and dad weren't going to work in the morning, and even though at 21 I could not live without my parents, there it was. There was no denying it. But I needed to know what happened. At 21, I had never crashed a car in my life, and I knew my dad was driving. He's the safest driver I've ever known. What went so wrong on this day that it started so perfectly? And I needed proof. You know, my whole life, I always need proof. The news would have to report what actually happened. I think I just Googled my own name. I found we stopped at that gas station that I remember stopping at. We left there. It's 5 minutes farther down the road. This road is 1 lane in each direction, 45 miles an hour. There's cornfields on that side of the road and a couple of houses on this side of the road. Every intersection has a light. And so my dad's driving. My dad is going south. He's going the speed limit. Dad doesn't do anything wrong. Coming to a green light. At the same time, going north, just opposite us, is this 18-wheeler, a truck taking milk to New York City. He's going north, so he has a green light as well. And at the same time, on this intersecting road, coming to a red light, was this 18-year-old young man, very simply talking on his phone, looking out the windshield, comes to a red light, sees the red light, and stops. But then is so distracted in his brain, forgets he's at a red light, tries to turn left into the intersection. The truck driver instinctively swerves to try and miss him, still clips the front of his car and then hits my family's car head on. In this picture, the young man was in this blue minivan. Somehow he came out of that white pile of steel. One of those houses, a mile down the road, there lives this man. His name's Dave. Dave just happens to be a volunteer paramedic. Dave heard the sound of this crash, jumped in his car, drove down to this intersection. Truck driver and the young man had bumps and bruises, but they were basically okay. Came to our car. Dave assures me that my dad didn't suffer. That truck had just picked up 30 tons of milk that Dad took the brunt of the impact of. Didn't even matter that he had his seatbelt on. There was nothing that could have kept him alive. My mom, on the other hand, had been in the back passenger seat, farthest from the point of impact, likeliest to have been okay. Except Mom was born in 1950. You know, the cars she grew up in didn't have seatbelts. So Mom always put her seatbelt on. It just took her 5 or 10 minutes into the drive, and it hadn't happened yet after we left that gas station. Mom ended up in the front seat, didn't even have a pulse when Dave got to her. Again, Dave assures me that it was instant for both of them. But I hope you can take a lesson from my mom's mistake. You know, for me, because of this, there are no excuses. I don't drive across a parking lot without putting my seatbelt on. It makes a difference. I had my seatbelt on. Dave says it kept me alive. It kept me inside the car. He came to me in the front passenger seat. I had a strong pulse, so I was alive, but I wasn't breathing. Dave moved my head. I took a gasp for air. He kept me alive. The next intersection down has an ambulance station. Jaws of life got me out of the car. Less than 10 minutes to get to this trauma center that was built just 3 years before all of this happened. That the only trauma center in the entire county was right there. All of those things coming together so perfectly. You know, that paramedic, that ambulance station, that hospital, it's all right there. Because this story needs to be told. Because this story is not unique. And because when a story like this happens, as it does every single day, it impacts the truck driver and that young man and all the people who love and care about those people. It's my family cut in half. And I look at this picture, and in every picture I see, I find what I am grateful for. And there's so much in this picture. Selfishly, that I wasn't either of my parents. That I was young enough and healthy enough, and I had my seatbelt on, and I did survive. Grateful that I wasn't my big brother. Jared was 25. He had driven separately. He was out having fun with friends that night, but then his phone rang. It was that same hospital chaplain calling to tell him that both of his parents were gone and his little sister probably wasn't gonna make it. At 25, having to play that hand of cards, having to call our grandparents and tell them that their children had been killed that afternoon, and going to that hospital to identify our parents' bodies in the morgue, and then planning a funeral for his parents. I was in a coma in the hospital fighting for my own life, and I am grateful that is where I was, because I would not have been strong enough to do everything that Jared had to do. And it kind of goes, you know, it's the friends and family members. Think of everyone who loves and cares about you. It's Steve and his entire family. It's my mom and the fact that she's the awesome 8th grade English teacher, and the next day is Monday, and 300 students come to the middle school to find that teacher that is always smiling, that teacher that is just trying to make the world a better place. Mrs. Good is no more. Starting to see the hundreds and hundreds of lives falling into this ripple. I'm going to talk about that idea, the ripple effect, again at the end. But I want to keep going chronologically. Everything I read was about that cell phone. I knew it was dangerous to use a phone and drive, because when I was 16 years old, now 13 years ago, my parents taught me, don't use your phone. Driving is dangerous. You have to pay attention to the road. Okay, that's what mom and dad said, but it's so easy to get complacent. You know, what do we actually know about that? What kind of research has been done? Obviously, anything that feels like a distraction is probably a distraction. Taking your hand off the wheel, not a huge deal. You know, you can drive a stick shift car. Taking your eyes off the road. You can't drive if you're not looking at the road. You know, it's illegal to drive with 2 earbuds in your ears because you have to be able to hear. It's all distractions. Or what happened to me, just not thinking about the road. Something scientists took MRI scans to look at our brains just to see what's going on. Left-hand side, activity in your brain when you're just driving a car. You gotta use your head. You're the only person in control of a few tons of steel. And on the right-hand side, this person is multitasking. Something that I put in quotes, because biologically we know our brains do not multitask. When you do 2 things at once, and yeah, you do 2 things at once all the time, but what it actually is, the scientists call it toggle tasking. Your brain hops back and forth between those 2 things, millisecond by millisecond, something that you never even feel. You feel like you're doing a great job. You don't know that you're looking, but you're not seeing what's right there. 37% less activity in the brain associated with the road in front of you that leaves you blind. Something scientists dug a little deeper. You know, what does it actually look like out there on our roads?
So, in this other study, they put cameras in cars to see what people's eyes were actually doing when they drove. What most people don't realize, I know I didn't until I did this research, is that when we're all just going about our normal daily lives, like doing one thing at a time, our eyes are actually constantly scanning left and right. We don't feel it happening, but it is. It helps us see more, it helps our brains process more information. So what they found in the study is that you can really see and process and react to everything in this big box on the left-hand side if you're just focused on the road. It's pretty much everything in front of you. Then they introduced conversation into the same cars, and those cameras proved that all the driver's eyes stopped that scanning, and they were just staring straight ahead. The result is that you can only really see, like JC said, you may look, but you don't see, half as much as you were able to see when you were just doing the one thing, driving, and that's obviously the small box on the right-hand side. It's something that the scientists have called inattention blindness. Like, we're literally blind to some of what's in front of our faces because our brains just don't have the power to pay attention to it all. And you know, that can cause a driver to miss something like a pedestrian crossing the street, or you know, here there's a school bus that's now outside of that frame, or it could be like our situation, and it's the red light directly in front of your face. Once you know even just a little bit of the science, and this is all we're going to show you guys, it starts to make a lot of sense. Like right now, here in our country, it is more than 1 out of every 4 crashes is caused by some form of self-abuse behind the wheel. And that is just a ridiculously, stupidly high percentage of crashes for something that never needs to happen. It's a choice every single time. It doesn't have to happen. It's a combination of calls and texts and social media, email, all the things we're trying to do behind the wheel. We hear all the time about the dangers of texting while driving. You know, there's laws in almost every state, pretty good job of education. We see the billboards, we see the TV ads, and that's for good reason, because texting while driving is way more dangerous than talking on the phone while driving. You know, we're not denying that at all. But talking on the phone makes a person 4 times more likely to crash, and that is whether you're handheld or hands-free. The National Safety Council now recognizes over 30 studies that have proven we're not actually safer using speakerphone or Bluetooth versus holding the phone. You know, despite what the car companies may want you to believe as they build the Bluetooth into the car and advertise it as this great thing, there's no science to back that up. In fact, there's science proving to the contrary. Unfortunately, I guess, the recent statistics are showing a slight increase in the percentage of people who admit to having recently either texted or used some form of the web, social media, whatever, behind the wheel. But still, twice as many people as that admit to having recently either made or received a call behind the wheel. And you know, we've been able to do that for so many more years, and because of that, over time, cell phone conversations have actually caused many, many, many thousands more crashes and injuries and deaths than any of the newer technologies. Now, the newer stuff is absolutely catching up. It's more dangerous and it's causing more crashes. But that's the truth of the situation. We need to see a world that sort of appreciates that reality, that no matter how badly we wish it weren't the case, there is just no safe way to use the phone behind the wheel, no matter what we're doing. You know, until the world lives that way, we're not really going to make a dent in fixing this problem.
And so to take you back to this story, it's now 2009. I'm living in my parents' house trying to figure out how I can get back that life that I had worked so hard to build for myself. And then I learned this case went to the district attorney. You know, 2 people were killed. Who was responsible for those deaths? Well, according to the DA, it was caused by a cell phone, and that's not illegal in Pennsylvania in 2008. So no crime was committed. No one's responsible. How is that possible? We know it's dangerous. I found a politician who has been trying to get a law passed for a couple of years. I went to the state capitol in Harrisburg and very simply shared this story, doing what I could to make this all make sense. This bill didn't go through along with several since then. Apparently Pennsylvania has always been really slow to pick up on these issues. It was a press conference. It got my name out as an advocate on the issue. Steve convinced me to move back to his hometown in New York, and I've been really lucky to share this story all over the place. Doing a lot of work in New York and New Jersey to give us some of the very strongest laws in the whole country here. Sharing this story at the international level in New York City with the United Nations. This photo with Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General, as he calls for an end to the global epidemic of distracted driving. Like, this is an issue in Pennsylvania, this is an issue in New Jersey, this is an issue in third world countries where you would never imagine this is a problem. Anywhere there's a car, this is a problem. This is the international level. I do not think that I can possibly find a venue larger, bigger than this to share this story. But I guess that was disproven when I got a call from out in Chicago, where I got to share this story with. Some of you guys probably recognize this one. Oprah has done so much work to share these real stories, because intellectually we know when we're doing something we probably shouldn't be doing. But then take that, move to the next level. You know, the science might not do it for you, but a real person saying this is every moment of every day for the rest of my life. Saying, put yourselves in these shoes. Imagine your kids living without you, or imagine living without your parents. How many more lives this needs to impact before we actually do something. This changed my life, as you might imagine. The laws, the science is important, but the real solution is coming from us, every one of us as individuals, saying, you know what, I'm going to make our world a better place. I'm going to stand up for what I know is right. For me, my phone goes on silent. For me, there are no excuses. My phone goes in the glove box. It's not connected to my Bluetooth because I don't want the temptation. I'm going to really actually live in the moment and enjoy the awesome experience that driving a car is. My voicemail says I might be driving. Something every single one of us can do to set that example, especially for the parents. Your kids are going to drive like you. Set the standard you know you want them to have. Using technology to help solve this problem. There's a ton of these apps out there that automatically respond. I've tried just about all of them. This one is my favorite. I'm not benefiting in any way. It's a free app. It's just the one that I like. I think it can be really successful in helping to combat this issue. To automatically send a response and to silence a phone just runs in the background all the time and makes a difference for me. And it means it comes from every aspect. You know, maybe you're at home and someone calls and says they're driving, or you're sitting in the passenger seat and you don't feel safe, that you have the courage to speak up.
Yeah, when I was a sophomore in high school, it was our first day back from winter break that year. It was January 2nd. An old buddy of mine got in the car for school that day with his best friend, who was a junior. His friend was going 90 in a 45. And it was my friend in the passenger seat who ended up losing his life. And you know, I went to Ardsley High School in Westchester County. Devastated our school, devastated our community. I've just always wondered, you know, did Frankie feel comfortable going so fast in the car that day? And obviously, we're never going to know. But the point is, like, it may not be the cool thing to do for a young person. It's not an easy thing to do for any person, but we all, you know, no matter our age, whoever we are, we all have to be able to turn to a friend, a sibling, a family member, a parent, a bus driver, a coworker, whoever it is, and say, you know, would you please just slow down a little bit, or can you just let that go to voicemail, or let me check that text for you? Because the day you don't do it really can be that day. I mean, you know, you never see it coming. That's the way these things work. Frankie didn't see it coming. We didn't see it coming. Life is normal 1 second, and then just like that, it's not, and it's not forever. And the line at the bottom of the screen, we all have the power to save lives, make their decision. Maybe that sounds a little corny, I know because I wrote it, but it's also totally true. You know, you'll never know if you've saved a life by driving a little bit safer or by being a responsible passenger, but you will sure know if you do the opposite. And it just doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how important you may think you are. They're not shoes you ever want to be remotely close to standing in.
And so in this country, we don't really know how many people this is impacting. Different organizations say different numbers. It's right around 15 people every day, and that's what this slide is showing you. 15 lives that are no more either their own choice or someone else's choice, that a phone was more important than a life. And I really quickly just want to share a few of these. You know, down here in the bottom row, the third one from the right, in the purple there is Heather. Heather's getting married at Disney World. She's got to plan that wedding on her way to meet the wedding planner and her parents. Heather's parents are waiting. Heather's parents are waiting, and Heather never arrives. Truck driver texting his company hits and kills 26-year-old Heather. Up in the top row, and the third one from the left, we've got Connor. Connor's 16 years old. He lives out in California. He's out running with his track team after school in a crosswalk. A man looking at his phone, not looking at the road, hits and kills 16-year-old Connor. And then right to the right of Connor is Joey. Joey's 12. Joey lives in Michigan. Joey's on his way home from piano lessons with his mom. A woman talking on her phone, looking out the windshield, doesn't see the red light that she blows, never even hits the brakes, hits and kills 12-year-old Joey. The dozens, hundreds of stories that are coming out like this that are just so senseless and so preventable that don't acknowledge the people like me, selfishly, to talk about my life. In our country, right around 1,000 people injured every day. And that's like a very low estimation. A lot of organizations say it's much higher than that. Over 1,000 people being hurt every single day because we can't resist our phones. For me, it's a brain injury, and you guys are looking at it. I know the brain cells that know how to move my wrist or my fingers or my ankle, my toes, anything on my left-hand side. You know, there's no more going for a run or riding my bicycle or playing softball or volleyball or those things that used to be my favorite things to do. Trying to figure out how this impacts everything forever for me because this one person's choice. At the same time, again, every time I tell this story, I have to remember how lucky I am that I woke up this morning. I took a shower, I dressed myself, I made a ponytail with one hand and brushed my teeth and fed myself, and I can live a pretty normal, independent life. I walked in here tonight. How lucky are we that we all walked in here tonight, that we can live the lives that we've worked to build for ourselves. You just always have to be grateful for everything that you do have. So lucky that that cute boy from New York over there. Oh, hi. Steve stuck around. Steve did not meet my 5-year plan of engaged and married, house and babies and everything else my 21-year-old self thought my 29-year-old self would have. Didn't even beat my parents' 7-year plan. Kept our wedding under a decade, which I think was an accomplishment given the circumstances. Just 2.5 years ago, we had this absolutely perfect wedding day. And Steve's little sister had the foresight. It's another opportunity to share this message and fill out the application for this TV show that they made in New York City where you can try on wedding dresses, and if you find a dress that you like, you might say yes to that particular dress. This really incredible experience that I'm gonna say doesn't really fit my personality. Like, I don't buy dresses that cost thousands of dollars to wear one time. Definitely not my style. But who watches this show? It's so often, well, I'd say yes, any woman in the room, I would say. But young people especially, I know growing up, the Friday marathons in college, man, I did not do anything else on Fridays. To show what it's like to stand in those shoes. You know, a wedding is just one day of your life, but it reflects every day of not having my mom to walk me down the aisle, to help me pick out that dress, and not having either of my parents to walk with me down the aisle. I walked myself down the aisle, not having my daddy to give me that last dance, not knowing if I can help those kids that I hope I can still have, to know the grandparents that we're so excited to meet them that they'll never get to meet. How this continues to impact everything forever for me and for all of these families, those ripples that are coming out of this. And how it never needs to happen again. But the only way that's gonna become the case is if we make the change ourselves. That it's 15 of these ripples of pain. If it hasn't touched your community, it's only a matter of time until we all fall somewhere in one of these ripples. And I share this story so that maybe you guys can count yourselves as part of my ripple. You guys can think of me as a friend. I'm the only JC Good in the world, and I want this story to make this world a better place. I want this story to mean something more than the pain that it's given to the world. And so use these ripples, use your own ripples to start a new ripple. It means wake up 5 minutes early, get to your car 5 minutes early. Then you have the time to put your phone in the glove box. You have the time to put your seatbelt on. You have the time to pull over if you need to use your phone. You have the time that you can actually go the speed limit. It's all these little things that individually might not seem like that much. When you put them all together, for my family, for all of these families, it was the difference between life and death. And so help us to use, this is the hand of cards that I've got. I'm not strong enough to play it on my own. So help me use this story. Put a company policy into place wherever you work to try and change these habits and to make our roads and our world just a little bit safer. How'd I do? I missed this. Oh gosh.
Yeah, ever since you started holding that thing, you're just getting it all caught up in The old lefty over there.
This whole story is on our website at hangupadrive.com, and so hopefully you guys can share it with someone you love, and then hold each other accountable to really actually live in the moment, live your life while you're there. I think that's all I have,
Okay.
right?
We'll open it up to questions, but anyone who would like to leave or needs to leave, feel absolutely free. You're not going to offend us. But we'll take a few questions if they exist. So feel free to ask one if it exists. It doesn't have to exist yet.
Yeah, is there any research on brain activity when people are on the phone or, you know, I heard you've got research on like use of earbuds, right, or Bluetooth as compared to having a conversation with a person who's in the car.
The question is what's the difference basically between having, let's say it's a Bluetooth conversation on the phone. What's the difference between that conversation and the conversation with the person in the passenger seat next to you? We get this question a lot. There's kind of two parts to that answer, and I think it's really important to understand because if you say, hey, it's the same thing, well, they're not going to tell me I can't talk to the person next to me. Why can they tell me I shouldn't talk on the phone? It's an important thing to understand. We, as human beings, as a species, an animal, what have you, have evolved or were created, whatever you believe, to interact with one another, to use teamwork to our benefit. And because of that, and this is proven through MRI scans, our brains actually get as much as half of our understanding in a conversation from hand gestures, facial expressions, and body language of the people we're talking to. When you're talking on the phone, you obviously don't get those visual cues to help you understand what's being said to you, and you don't get to use what you may use to express yourself to the other person on the phone. Even though it may not feel like you're getting half that information from the body, that's what the science is proving. And even though it doesn't feel like much, and even though it may just take an extra few milliseconds to understand, on the road, that's that 37% less activity in your brain. So not all conversations are created equal.
And beyond that, I guess not all passengers are created equal. You know, I believe my number one duty as a still newlywed wife, I have to be the backseat driver, right? Isn't that like my most important role?
She's good at it.
I am an extra set of eyes. For experienced drivers, that extra set of eyes makes the car safer. You know, I speak up if Steve does something wrong, which he like never does anymore. He's really good at this. I stop talking if there's snow or traffic or anything that I know he needs to think about driving. The person on the phone can't see what's going on. For young people, for inexperienced drivers, the opposite is the case. It's why the graduated licensing laws don't let lots of teens pile into a car. So parents pay attention to that. Don't put all your kids in one car. Every passenger just serves as a distraction because that inexperienced brain can't handle it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got it all. I'm not good though. I need like a closing clincher.
I know, you're
Every
it's fine.
statement.
Just look at me whenever you're done with the thought. Yeah.
It seems like, I know we just recently bought a new car, and I feel like every time you go in the car dealer, they're layering more into the car. So you have a navigation system that's the size of a small television,
Right.
you know, to your right. You've got the Bluetooth where, I mean, even one feature was that your text could feed out onto the navigation system. So you're basically reading your text while driving your car. I feel like, is there anything out there to stop the auto industry from these distractions are just more and more. When you're looking at these things, I don't care how experienced you are as a driver, you
Yeah,
don't have the ability to shut it out.
As we understand it, and you know, we've had limited but some interaction with auto industry. We speak with our wallets basically, and because the knowledge isn't out there, I mean, I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what I just said about talking to a passenger, right? And I think that's a powerful thing to understand. But people don't know that you think, and they advertise it as a safety feature, right? It's not, yeah, lane departure warning, that's a safety feature, but voice to text or whatever has actually been shown to be more dangerous than picking up your phone and texting. It was not advertised as danger, as advertised as this great new hands-free technology. I think the reality is we just have to keep educating people, and then people have to somehow speak with their wallets. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you read even the fine print that would come with that. I guess I haven't read the car's fine print, but a new cell phone comes with fine print that tells you there's no safe way to use a phone. I'm fairly certain the car companies have the same fine print that no one reads. We're we're demanding it, whether it's, you know, it's not necessarily as an individual, but as a society, we need to be connected all the time. And unfortunately, I don't know, Twitter doesn't belong in a car. There's no way around that for me.
It's an uphill battle, I guess. Yeah?
Did you ever talk to the person who caused the accident?
So that 18-year-old or that truck driver, no criminal charges. There was a civil lawsuit. Lawyers kept them away for the first 5 years. The lawsuit's been over for 2 years. According to lawyers, the young man never admitted to having done anything wrong. I don't know, he was 18 at the time. He's now 26. I imagine he's battling his own demons. I know the truck driver really suffered. He was like 45, 46 at the time, fell back into drug and alcohol habits that he had, you know, overcome. His daughter stopped talking to him. I know, we just read in the paper this past fall, he passed away at maybe 52, 53 years old. I know he suffered for the rest of his life, but I never got to meet him.
You keep walking so much during this presentation, which is fine, but you keep going in and out of the light on your face, and it's driving me crazy just watching you. As a person who gives speeches, you know, we always nitpick each other after each speech. That's what I'm going to tell you when we get in the car. I'm telling you again now, but you're in and out of the light. It's driving me crazy. Anyone else? All right, anyone who wants to stay and talk to us one-on-one, you're absolutely welcome to do so. But thank you guys so much for coming out and listening to us.